There's going to be some of you that are going to look at this video and be like, another bronzer video, I had enough bronzers. I get it. I did a comprehensive video where I compared the Hermes bronzers that came out to 25 different bronzers I have in my collection. So if you want to see all the different shades of all the different bronzers, check that video out. I'll make sure I link it. This is not that video. This is a ranking video. I'm going to have my top 10 bronzers. I'm going to explain to you what the criteria is up front, and then show you the top 10 bronzers. I am going to explain where the newest bronzers fit in all of that, if they're in the top 10 at all, including the Hermes, MAC, Jones Road, Pat McGrath, and NARS. So all the new bronzers will be part of this conversation. I'll explain to you why they're in the top 10, why they're not, and the criteria. So let's start with the criteria. So if you haven't watched me before, hi everybody, my name is Jennifer, and I like a cooler toned bronzer. I like a bronzer that has a little bit of red in it even, because I am very pale, and when I tan, I have that, I don't tan, I burn. But if I were to tan, what would look natural on me is something that's a little bit cooler. I wouldn't look right with a golden tan because it's not my undertones, it's not my skin tone. My husband has this gorgeous golden, he tans beautifully. I'm so completely jealous, but it's a stunning, stunning shade. But I don't go that color. So the warmer, bronzier, true bronzer tones don't look good on me. However, bronzer, as its nature, is supposed to go on the high points of your face. I've done videos and talked about contour versus bronzer. I'm not going to get into all of that today. Just to say very briefly, contour is cooler, bronzer is warmer. There's a lot more to it than that, but let's just leave it there for today. So when I say that I like something that's a little bit cooler, a little bit redder, I don't want something that's like a contour shade. I don't want something that I'm putting here. I want something that I'm putting here and here, across my forehead, the bridge of my nose, and something that I can use as a contour-ish shade on my neck. So something that's not so brown, so warm that it's going to look odd if I use it that way. So I tend to use bronzer as sort of an all-over bronzer, which basically means that yes, I use it as bronzer in the high points of my face, but that if it is used to sort of contour my face a little bit, it's not going to look weird, which means that it's not going to be too warm. So there's a number of bronzers that have recently come out that frankly are warm. They are warm toned, they are yellow peachy tones, and let's just get off the mark right now. They are the Hermes bronzers in 01 and 02. I did not pick up the other shades. There are 5 shades, I believe, because these are $100 a piece, and I am not going to spend another $300 for bronzers when I have bronzers that work perfectly well for me. This is 01 and this is 02. These shades, and like I said, I've done numerous videos with these shades and that you can go see. You can tell though, these are warm toned. This is like a peach, and this shade is tan. And the shades are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. If you like a warmer toned, peachy tan bronzer, these you'll like. The formula in here is my favorite formula of any new bronzer. Any new bronzer, let's just say. The formula is phenomenally good. It sinks right into the skin. It's like silk. Beautiful. Absolutely love it. For $105, it better be, but it is. It's perfection. But I don't love these shades, and although 02, which I'm going to swatch, which is this one, is really nice. Like I said, the formula is so outstanding that I'm just like, wow. And I will use it because I spent $100 on it, but I think it looks nice on me. I think it's okay on me. It works on me. And those of you out there who like a warmer tone have mentioned that you thought it looked great on me. So it's something that I think, again, any of you that are out there that like a warmer tone bronzer, don't mind paying $105 or get it on sale. The formula is absolutely just amazing, but it is not in my top 10. And the reason it's not in the top 10 is because the shades. I mean, the shades are bad. For me, the shades are bad. I also don't think, honestly, that there's 5 shades. I think you need more than that if you're addressing a very large group of people. The lightest shade, yes, 01 is a very light shade and peachy, but there's a lot of people who are pale who might want bronze. There's a lot of people who are pale that want pink. You don't have those options. And the same is true on the deeper end. So I don't really think that, in my opinion, they addressed all of that. So yeah, I'm, again, it's not in my top 10. Another thing I want to mention is the Jones Road, and this is the pink Dusty Rose bronzer. I think this is a phenomenally good product, and the product itself is in my top 10, which I'll explain in a minute. This is blush, in my opinion. Again, if you love this as a bronzer, and this is what it is, it's a bronzer, I totally get that. Like I've talked about a million times, wear makeup the way you want to wear it. So if this is the right bronzer for you, fantastic. But this is the same shade as, almost identical to Chanel Mocha, which I have talked about ad nauseum in other videos. When I did my rosy blush video, it's a very comprehensive video. Check that out. There's like, I don't even know how many rose blushes are in that one. 50? I don't know. There's a lot. And this is almost the exact same shade as Mocha, and I love this. Love the product as blush. I love it as blush. It's like one of my favorite new blushes. I wear it a lot. But to me, it's too cool to be a bronzer. Again, these are my opinions, my opinions only. It's too cool to be a bronzer. Okay, it's again too cool to be a bronzer. Not too cool to be blush. It's perfect for blush, but for me, it's not the right shade for bronze. I think there's, I got messages from a lot of you where you're all like, oh no, I absolutely love it as a bronzer. Totally respect that. But for me, it's not in my top 10. Pat McGrath. I did a video. I really like her formula. I think she did a really good job. I think it's extremely good. I've always liked Pat McGrath's powder products. So I think that it's a good product, but the shades, in my opinion, they're okay. Like they're just okay. So this is shade Naked Bronze and is the lightest. And in my opinion, it's peachy. It works. It definitely works on me. And if you're a lighter skin, paler person, I'm glad she has that shade. It's not as bad as, you notice how this one this is the second shade in Hermes is even more yellow. This is not yellow, but it does have sort of a little bit of a peach. But the other shade, the second shade, which is Nude Honey, I think is really, really pretty. I think it's a good neutral. I don't think it's cool, but I think it's a really good neutral, and I really do like it. I think it looks really nice on my skin. I think it's a very pretty formula. I think it blends right in. It looks really beautiful on. And I really, really like it. And it's right outside of my top 10. It's number 11, just so you know. MAC. MAC is in my top 10 twice, but one of the shades that's not, it's really weird. And this is the thing that I would caution about, even though I put the MAC in my top 10. I don't know what this is. Like, I'll explain. There's something wrong, I think, with some of the batches. As we heard, MAC released the bronzers and then discontinued them or de-released them. I don't know what happened. And there was something wrong with them, and then they brought them back out. So I don't know if maybe that I got a bad batch, or maybe there's just a problem with this particular shade. I don't know. I wish I had an answer. But I would tell you that the Matte Light Rosy, this is Matte Light Rosy, and I've said this a couple times, is not only not rosy, it's peach. It's this really weird peach shade. But it also took me a really long time to get it to work. Like, I had to get rid of a film on top of the bronzer, And once I got rid of the film on top of the bronzer, then I could get pigment out of it. But for like the first like 3 or 4 times that I used it, there was like no pigment, like nothing. And then when I just kept using it, like the film on top like went away and then it started to get pigment. It's really odd. So I don't know what that is, but this isn't rosy. In my opinion, that's peach. And it almost looks like blush, like a peachy coral blush. It doesn't look like bronzer. But again, it's not like the Hermes, which is yellowish. It's not like the Jones or Dusty Rose, which is pink. And this is also, you know, yellowish from Pat McGrath, the lightest shade. This one, again, like I said, is really pretty. It's number 11. That's Nude Honey. But the MAC one in Light Rosy Matte, very careful here, the Matte Light Rosy is not a shade I like. And the formula was really weird because there was like no pigment in it until I basically just kept swatching it like a million times and then it worked, which is, that's not normal. I don't know if it's the matte formula of Light Rosy that's just like that, or I have a bad matte Light Rosy. You guys can let me know. All right, now to my top 10. Okay, so you probably figured out by now, what am I looking at when I'm considering top 10? I'm considering formula, how well it works on my skin. I have dry skin. I do not have oily skin. I have dry skin. I have more mature skin. I have lines. I have wrinkles. I don't want anything settling anything or making me look older. I don't want it to look cakey. I want to be able to build it. I don't want it to be ridiculously expensive like the Hermes, which is $105. I don't mind it being expensive if there's a lot of product in there and I can use it for a long period of time. That's fine. But if it's $100 and there's a lot of product in there, but the shades are peach, no. And for a long time, I struggled with the Hermes and being like, yeah, but the formula is amazing. And it is. The formula is so good. I just think the shades are weird. Like, I get it. If you found your shade, if you have a deeper skin tone and you picked up like 3, 4, or 5, I've seen them. They are cooler. They're not cool, but they're cooler. And you found a perfect shade for you. I am envious because the formula is stunning. Still, it's $105. But there isn't a shade that I like. There just isn't. And I cannot put it in my top 10 if I'm not going to use it. So, again. All right. Number 10. This is Chanel Le Beige's Sunshine Light. And it's really funny because I didn't pick this up until I picked up the medium and deep first. The deep is way too deep for me. It really is way too deep. But I really love the formula and I use it a lot like for contour of my eyes and just put it all over my eye shade. And I will use it in the summer when I have some pigment and use it very, very lightly, like super lightly, guys. On me, it's extremely deep. The thing that I would say about the Chanel Light and the reason that I like it is there's a little bit of radiance to this, not a lot, but a little, that actually makes my skin look healthy. Which is interesting because I kind of look my skin tends to look a little dry, a little dehydrated, which is not a surprise because it's called a oversized healthy glow sun-kissed powder. So I think this powder has a little bit of radiance in it, a glow to it that I really like. But you can tell it's very, very light. It doesn't impart a lot of pigment. It's lighter than all of these. It is warm. It's not particularly cool. It looks more like the Pat McGrath lightest shade, which I don't particularly like. However, there's something about the Chanel formula, the glow, that because it's light, because it's a little warm, but if I just use it in the high points of my face, and just as where a bronzer would hit, not in any of the contour spaces, it gives a really healthy glow to my skin that I really like on myself. And I've used it a number of times on the channel so you can see it. But if you're looking for something that's just used as a bronzer, not as a bronzer, I would not suggest using it in the hollows of your cheek or to try to sculpt your nose or under your chin because on me at least it looks weird because it's too glowy and too warm. But if you're looking for something that you can just kind of go like this and have this healthy glow to your skin and you use a big fluffy brush, it really looks beautiful. And I use it, even though it's number 10, I probably use it more than anything else because it's super easy for me to use because it doesn't have a lot of pigment. It's very, very light. It just looks glowy. So I can even choose to use it as like a healthy glow powder all over my face. I can literally take a powder brush, and it needs to be a soft powder brush, and use it all over my face just to warm up my face. Or I can use it more specifically as a bronzer. So even though it's 10, because again, these are bronzers, it's probably the bronzer I use the most. Number 9. This is Dior Forever Tan Bronze. This is in shade 04. I would consider this shade to be neutral. It is not the lightest shade in the Dior grouping at all. There's 02, I don't know if there's a 01, but I know there's a 02 because I have it, through I think 10. It's a neutral color. You can see already it's cooler than the Chanel, and definitely, you know, cooler than the MAC that's supposedly rose, which it's not. And definitely the Hermes and Pat McGrath. It's close to the Pat McGrath Nude Honey shade though. But the reason I like this better than the Pat McGrath is I like the formula in here. The formula is incredibly silky, very, very smooth. Pat McGrath, Nude Honey, and this are close. They're very, very close. But I do like the Dior better. I think possibly because I've been using it longer, frankly, and I just feel more comfortable with it. But it is a beautiful formula. It has been released recently in new packaging. It's the same shade as far as I can tell, but the packaging looks really nice. It looks really cool. So if you like a cooler bronzer, neutral cool, reasonable price point for a luxury brand. It's still expensive, but it's just a beautiful shade, and I really like it. It has 0.31 ounces, and the Chanel, for example, it's huge, has 0.53 ounces. The only thing bigger, I think, is the Hermes. The Chanel is quite a bit more expensive, but you're getting a lot more product. Okay, number 8, Chanel again. So this is Chanel Medium. The same reasons that I love it. It has this healthy glow to it, but this is more of a bronzer on me because it is a much deeper shade, and it's medium, which the only thing I would say the drawback of Chanel, in my opinion, is they don't really have a great, expanse of shades. If I was knocking Hermes for only having 5, I have to knock Chanel for only having 3. I will say their deep shade is pretty deep, but it's not deep enough. There needs to be more. There needs to be more shades from Chanel. That's a constant dig that I'll have at Chanel for forever. One of the people I watch on YouTube, and I love her channel, Allison Chase, who I love. She used to work for Chanel as well. She just did a video about like the bad stuff at Chanel. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. My dig on Chanel has been, when I worked for them and now, they don't have enough shades. Like in their foundation, in their powders, in their bronzers. 3 shades is not enough. But anyway, this is another video. You can see the glow. You see like it's like a radiance to this one. And this is a true bronzer shade. It is warmer. This is not a cool toned shade. It is, however, cooler. Then again, and I keep going back to this because this is the one I like the least, the Hermes, or the coolest shade in Pat McGrath, or the Light Rosy by MAC, which is not rosy. It's still cooler than that. So I give it that, but it is a bronzy shade. However, when you only have 3 shades, it's not surprising that the bronzer is bronzy. Like that's not a shock. I really like the way this looks on me, but again, this one I actually use less than I use the light, even though I'm ranking it higher, because as a bronzer, I think it's a better product as a bronzer. So I use this one more in the summer when I want to actually look bronzed, and I use it on the high points of my face. Again, I don't use this as a bronze tour. I do not tend to use it in the contours or under my chin. I use another product for that when I'm using this. But when I want to have that bronzy look, when I want to have a summer look, it's a great bronzer. And the formula is fantastic. Let's hit 7. 7 is MAC. And like I said, I do have 2 MAC products in here. This is the Matte Medium Rosy. Now, here's the weird thing, right? I talked about the light rosy and said it's not rosy, which it's not. The matte product had the similar problem of like I had to get through like the layers to get like shade, which was weird. But once I did it, then it worked great. I don't know. Anyway, but I will say this shade is what I would consider cool, cool neutral. It's not super cool, but when you see it next to the other ones, you'll see that it is a cooler shade. I don't know where they get rosy from, but whatever. But it's not, I wouldn't call it a medium. I would call it a light. So if you're a paler person like me, this works because it's, again, I don't think this is good for like a medium toned skinned person. I think it's good for a light skin toned person. But can you see how this is a cooler neutral shade, right? It's similar to the Dior. It's got this kind of cool neutral shade. You notice that the Chanel's are actually warmer. You know, again, like I said, Chanel medium is a little cooler, but still, the Dior and the MAC are cooler. And so I do like those shades more. And although it's matte, it's not a true matte. It's got some, it does have some satinness to it. It's not radiant. We'll get to that in a minute, but it is actually a really nice formula. This is probably the least expensive item on my list thus far. All right, number 6. Number 6 is the NARS. Now, the only reason I'm not ranking this one higher, because I love this, the formula is like silk. It just goes right over your face. Like, it looks so good and so easy to apply. Like when you run your hands on this, it's gonna feel like velvet. It feels like velvet. It's beautiful. This is 00. This is the lightest shade. The only reason I'm not ranking it higher is because it's not cool enough for me. Now, is it warm? No. I would say this is a neutral, cool leaning shade. I wish they had something a little cooler. The 01 I've looked at, and it's deeper than this, but it's not cooler. At least in my opinion, it wasn't. So if they had a cooler shade, one that was more like this, or more like, this is the MAC and this is the Dior, I would rank it higher because I love this formula. I think NARS did a fantastic job. I believe it's taupe free. There's a lot of shades. I think there's like 10 shades. It looked to me, at least looking at the shades, that there was a pretty decent range. This is light enough that if you're paler than me, you absolutely can use it. It's a nice neutral in the sense that it's not too cool, it's not too warm. You can definitely use it as bronzer. It's not gonna look like a contour on you if you don't like a cooler bronzer. The formula is like velvet. Seriously, go find a place where they carry it. Sephora is where I found mine, but I mean, there's lots of places that carry it. It's velvet. It's so smooth. It feels so beautiful on your hand, and it's perfect on the face. Like, the formula is amazing. It's really, really good. Yeah, really, really like it. Okay. Number 5. This is Chantecaille Goa. This is not new by any means. Now, Chantecaille is coming out with new products for summer, and one of them is a bronzer. I do not have specifics yet, but I will, on the shade and how it mounts up to Goa and Serena. I don't have Serena. Serena is their other one because it's warm. I know it's warm toned. Goa is a reddish bronzer, and it's actually a little deep for me. And the only reason I don't rank this one higher is because it's too deep for me. And Chantecaille only has 2 shades, Goa and Serena. Although my understanding is, like I said, the bronzer that's coming out is going to have the same formula. I just don't know what kind of shade it's going to be. We'll have to see because I don't have a name yet. But this formula, this gel, it's like a gel to powder. It's, I think it might be like a gelée. It's beautiful. And you know, I didn't mention, I mentioned the Dior and the Chanel sizes. The MAC was 28 ounces and the NARS is 38 ounces. So they're similar. The Chanel ones are much, much, much bigger, but more expensive. And the Goa is 0.38, so similar to the NARS. Same size as NARS. Goa, it is more expensive. I just want to say though, I have had this product for years, like years. And I haven't even like gotten through the design on the top of this thing. Now that's partially because it's too deep for me, and so I use a very little amount of it. But I have to say the formula in here is really, really good. And you don't need a lot of product, even if you are a deeper skinned person, because it's so heavily pigmented that you're gonna get your pigment pretty quickly, and it's just gonna disperse beautifully, so you don't need a lot. So even though it is more expensive and about the same size as the NARS, I have to say I have been using this for years, and like I said, I haven't really made a dent in it. So I'll let you know what the new formula is like when I have it. And if the shade is very different, I'll of course compare it to Goa. But as you can see, it's a cool toned bronze. It almost has like a reddish undertone to it. There is some radiance here. It is the deepest of the ones that we have swatched thus far. And again, you know, I might even rank this in my top 3, except for the fact that it's too deep and I have to be super, super careful with it. So that kind of, you know, evens it out. But I have to say, the shade is beautiful. And if they made more shades and lighter shades and deeper shades, I think that would be awesome. I don't think they're going to do that. But the formula is really quite beautiful. Okay, number 4, which is going to surprise a lot of people. It's MAC again. And when I did my video where I did a top 3 and I had MAC, number 3 after NARS and Jones Road, one of the reasons that I put it in 3 with those is I didn't have this one yet, which I'll explain in a minute. But I really do like the MAC formula, and I was taking into account price. So if you take into account price, this is much cheaper than the rest of them. However, I will say these do rattle. All of them do. Some of them worse than others, but anyway. This is the Radiant formula. Now, this is light rosy, again. I don't generally like a Radiant blush, bronzer, but what I realized when I went back and was doing all these testing of all of these, although I don't really like a Radiant bronzer, I do like a Radiant powder that's light enough for me to use because, as I was talking about with the Chanel, there's some radiance, so some glow to it. It makes my skin look healthy. So in that respect, I do like it and just didn't realize it. So what I would say is, let's do it, try to figure out, let's do it here. I would say that this is great for me in the sense that it is similar to the Chanel, the light Chanel that I ranked it at number 10, but better because the shade I like a lot more. So it has a similar radiance, glow to the Chanel product, but can you see how much cooler it is than the Chanel product? I mean, there it is, there it is. It is much rosier, much rosier. It's really actually a very pretty rose shade and looks very similar in shade to my number 1 pick, which we'll get to in a minute. So it's glowy, it's radiant, is how I described. It's not inexpensive, less expensive, it's $35. It's decently sized, as I said a minute ago, which I've already forgotten. The size is 0.28 ounces, so it is the smallest one that we've talked about so far, I think. Is Dior smaller? No, Dior's 0.31, so it's the smallest. So it's the least amount of bronzer that you get, but it is also, at the moment, the least expensive. And the light rosy is, in my opinion, meant for light, pale tones, and it is rosy. And here's the light rosy, like I said, in the Radiant shade. Here is the light rosy in the matte shade. Look at those 2 shades. They're not anything alike. It's the same name, light rosy, but here's Radiant, here's matte. So I don't know what happened there. Misnamed? I don't know. I'll show you to you like right on top of it. It's not at all the same. This is a really cool toned, it is Radiant, which is, you know, different formula. That makes sense. But they're totally different shades. So I don't know. I don't know if, like I said, if I got a bad light rosy matte or I don't know what happened. So anyway, I'll just have to tell you that when you're looking, if you don't like radiance, if you don't like this glowy look that the Chanel's have and now this MAC has, and you want the MAC matte shades, I would try out the light rosy before you buy it, because if it's like mine and it's this weird peach shade and it's got a weird film on it, I don't think you're gonna like it because it just doesn't look quite right. And instead, I would say get the matte medium, which is still light, I promise you, and looks more like the light rosy in the Radiant shade. Again, I don't know why. All right, my top 3. Now, it's a little bit different than when I did my video. When I did my video, I ranked it, I'm pretty sure, NARS, Jones Road, MAC. I am now putting Jones Road ahead of the NARS because although I love the NARS, again, absolutely love how beautiful the NARS is. And it really does look quite beautiful on the skin. It is a little warmer. So if you're somebody who likes a warmer bronzer, a traditional shade of bronzer, if you want to look at it, the right shade of bronzer, whatever, go with the NARS. If you want a cooler toned, I would go with the Jones Road. And this is in light tan. And the formulas, I have to tell you, like between the NARS and the Jones Road, I don't think I could pick. I really don't. They're very similar, actually. They're both beautiful, both velvety. To the touch, the NARS is more velvety and more beautiful to touch, but on the face, it ends up being the same. But can you see how this is cooler? This is cooler than the NARS. That's the thing. So the 00 is a nice neutral and it leans cool, but the light tan in Jones Road is cool. It is definitely cool. And so the formula is beautiful. It's very similar to the NARS, not as velvet feeling, but when you put it on your face, you have the same kind of look. It's let me get the size, 0.2 ounces. So now it is the smallest. And I think it's the same price as the MAC, or maybe a little bit more. So technically this would be, you know, for what you're getting, the least amount because it's 0.2, but it is a less expensive alongside the NARS and the MAC. The Chanel is the most expensive, I believe, but you're also getting like half an ounce, which is quite a bit in bronzer. The Dior is relatively expensive, and my top two are expensive. There's no doubt. All right, here's my top two. Gucci. Now, this is Gucci 01. This has been out for quite some time, 3 years. I have used this a lot, and I haven't really made much of an indent. The packaging, I think, is beautiful. I love this color. I love the gold. I think Chanel, I think Dior always does a great job with their packaging. Sometimes I don't like their product, but their packaging is awesome. They've got the little brush that I never use, but it's underneath there, so it's a pretty big size packaging. I have to say, I don't travel with this one. The reason I don't travel with it is because it's bigger, but the shade is like, if you had to come up with basically a perfect shade, this is it. Now, the thing I don't love about the Gucci, or I should be careful how I say it. I really like it, but I get why other people wouldn't like it, is that it does have a scent. And it actually still has a scent all these years later. But if you don't mind the scent, and I actually liked it when it was stronger, then, you know, it's fine. And then the price point. It's Gucci, so it's expensive. You know, it just is. The packaging, like I said, I think is beautiful. I think the way they did it is great. It's 0.42 ounces, so it's actually quite a bit of product for what you're getting. There's a really pretty mirror. I actually never took the sticker off the mirror. It's still on there. And like I said, if you like to have a travel brush, there's a little travel brush in there, so it's kind of cool that they put that in there. The mirror is actually quite good. It's a good quality. And the formula in here, when I talk about NARS being velvet, the Gucci is velvet silk. Like, it's whoosh, so good. And it actually, when it came out, I was so impressed by it that I ended up buying like every Gucci product that came out for a while, assuming that it would be the same quality. And it wasn't, unfortunately. But in my opinion, this is by far the standout product for Gucci. And if the blushes were of the same quality or went on the skin the same, I would love the blushes as much. The blushes, in my opinion, don't have the same formula as the bronzer. Maybe it's me. Maybe I just don't like it, but I don't get the same smoothness, the Gucci sort of like smooths everything out, makes everything look better. My skin looks prettier. It just is super beautiful and smooth and silky, and it doesn't settle into lines, and it doesn't irritate my skin, even though it has a fragrance. And it's just, and the shade, in my opinion, is like perfect because it is a cool toned. It has like a reddish, coolish, pinkish tone. And it's not that far off from the, it's definitely warmer, but it looks similar to the Pink Dusk of Jones Road. This is too big for me, but this is perfect. So there are people who are going to really disagree with this list because, well, we all disagree on myriad of things, but because the Gucci is definitely, the 01 is definitely cool and definitely reddish. However, there are, as is the Goa, by the way. The Goa has also got a reddish tone, but much deeper. There are other shades in the Gucci bronzer, though, I promise you, that are more warm toned and bronze. So if you're looking for a fantastic formula, 0.42 ounces, you don't mind fragrance or you like fragrance, check out the Gucci bronzers. Number one has not been surpassed. Number one is still my Tom Ford bronzer. And I am sad to say that this is Tom Ford Terra. This one has to go. This is the small one. I have used it. You can see how much I love it. I've been using this for, wow. I've been using this shade, it must be 15 years or more. Yeah, it has to be. It has to be about that long because the first time I bought it was in New York at Sex. I was with my now husband. Were we married? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how long ago this was. And we were at the Tom Ford counter because I always went to Saks every time we went to New York on a business trip. And the Tom Ford SA was like, I wasn't wearing bronzer because I never wore bronzer back in that day before, which is why I think it was more than 15 years ago. But anyway, and she came up and she was like, let me just show you this bronzer on me. And I was like, okay. And she used the Tom Ford bronzer brush, which no longer exists, in the natural hair, which I already owned. And I should have bought another one while I was there. But anyway, took that brush, took this Terra bronzer and did this like 3 thing, basically like a bronzer, where it was my forehead, but then sort of contouring of my cheeks and then under my jaw and then like along my nose. And the minute she did it, I looked in the mirror, I was like, oh my goodness, it accentuates what I want, that I like about my face, and like pushes back things that I don't. It was immediate. And even my husband, who usually is like, you look great, no matter what, was like, wow, that does look better. So I, of course, immediately bought it. And I bought the small size because these are very expensive. I think this was like, I don't remember at the time, but I think this was like $75. And this is the small size. So this is 0.31 ounces. So about smaller than the NARS, a little bit bigger than the MAC. But it was like $75, which again, I think this was like 15 to 20 years ago. So this was a long time ago. So it's a lot of money. And then I found out a few years ago that they were getting rid of the large sizes. And so the shade Terra still exists. If they discontinue it, I will literally cry. And I will have to buy like 5 of them because they're powder products and they last. But the large size was discontinued. And here is the large size. And I just opened this. Literally, I just took it out of its box because I'm going to have to start using it. And it's 0.50 ounces. So it's basically the same size as the Chanel. Here's my Tom Ford brand spanking new. It's not new, obviously. I mean, it's been sitting in a drawer for 3 years. Terra bronzer. And I really went back and forth. I'm like, well, I like a lot of these, but honestly, the Terra bronzer still is my favorite. And the reason it's my favorite is because it takes all of the qualities of all the things I've talked about. It is a neutral, cool leaning, definitely cool, bronzer that I can build. So if I want to just brush it all over my face and not like pay attention to the fact that it's on the bronze parts or the contour parts, I can do that. So I can use it as bronzer. I can use a fluffy brush, use it all over my face to just warm up my face like the Chanel. It gives a little bit of glow, but not too much. It's got this beautiful satin finish. It's the exact right shade for me. Pale skinned, cool toned, perfect shade. A little bit warmer than the Gucci, a little bit lighter than the Gucci, so I can use it without having to worry about it. And it just is perfect for me. And the formula is just amazing. So I'm going to take my Tom Ford brush here and I'm going to use up the last remnants of this small, very sad to see it go because this was great to travel with. And you know, I'm not going to travel with the large one. First of all, because of the fact that the large size has been discontinued, that large size that I've just opened that I showed to all of you will be sitting in my drawer here. I'm going to use it for normal days when I'm getting ready or when I use it for something for the camera for all of you, but I'm not going to travel with it because it doesn't exist anymore. So that means I have to buy another small size of this to travel with. And frankly, it's very expensive for what you're getting. Now, again, it is my favorite, so I will buy it, but I'm, not thrilled about having to spend, I forget exactly how much it is. I'll have the prices down below when I go back and edit the video so that, you have the price points and the sizes for each one. But it's not an inexpensive product. It's an expensive product. But can you just see how, I wasn't precise in the way that I put it on my face, but it just looks so natural. It looks like how I would look if I actually sat outside or I actually got a little bit of a tan. It looks healthy. It looks glowy. It looks like it contoured my face a little bit. But I didn't have to spend any energy or effort, which is big to me because I don't have a lot of time, to make it look that way. And so that is why it is my number one product. And I, again, will continue to use it. So that is my top 10. Hopefully, and then I, of course, put in the newer items and where I felt they fit. I am sure there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with this list or have things ranked completely differently, and that's normal. I think all makeup is subjective, but like from my friends who use a lot of bronzer, I have some friends who would hate this list because they hate anything that's cool toned. And then I have friends who honestly would be like, I only use the Jones Road Dusty Rose and it's the only bronzer I like because it's pink. So I don't expect everyone to see this list and be like, oh yeah, I totally agree. That's not why I did it. I did it because I wanted, one, I've been asked to do it for a very long time. I get a lot of requests to do ranking videos. So here it is, ranking video. They're very hard to do, in my opinion, because I always feel like I have different shades and different products for different things. So if I want a radiant look, if I want a summer look, exactly. So it's really hard for me to rank because I always feel like, well, it could be number one on this day or this day. But I get why people like ranking videos. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, because of all the new bronzers that have come out this year, there's been a lot of bronzers, a lot of eyeshadow sticks, and a lot of blush. Things go in trends. But I have had a lot of questions like, well, where do you put this compared to your Gucci? Or where do you put this compared to the Chanel? Or where do you put this compared to? So I was like, you know what? Here it is. Here's where everything fits. And that is my bronzer ranking video for 2023 of April of 2020. Well, actually it'll be May of 2023. And I hope not to have to do one of these again for quite some time because it actually takes a lot of effort to figure out really how you would rank things because it's not necessarily the thing you wear the most. Like I said, I wear the Chanel Light probably more than anything except for the Terra. Because it's so light and like makes me look like healthy that I just kind of go and then like walk out the door. But it doesn't necessarily look the best on me, really. If I spend more time and more effort and I have a bronzer and a contour, it actually does look better. I know that. And many of these products are going to be like replacing that, like the NARS and the MAC and the Jones Road. Now that I have them in my collection because they're new, I probably will use the Chanel less. When the Chanel came out, I didn't have any of those. So, and the Goa bronzer, like I said, I love this bronzer. I think the formula that's why I ranked it so high. It's ranked my number 5 because the formula is stunning and I really do love the shade. It's just too deep for me. So, if they had that formula with that undertone and like 5 shades lighter, it could possibly surpass Terra. Just doesn't exist. So, those are things to keep in mind. But anyway, hopefully it was interesting to you. Hopefully you all liked it. If you have any questions or comments, please put them below. I'd love to hear from you about what your favorites are, what you think of my list. You hate the list, you love the list, whatever. So thanks so much for joining me today, guys. I really do appreciate it and hope to see you in another video really soon. Bye.